It's time once again to go racing.
It does not get any better than this.
The pressure is really on now.
Yes, it's pole position. Lights out and we're racing in PSGL.
The first lap has been absolute chaos.
What an overtake.
Oh no!
I've never seen anything like it.
Side by side again. This will be settled right at the end. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to PSGL, round number 4 of the season and the final race before the break week here on the PlayStation platform. Can Matthew Alder keep up his incredible form and make it 3 wins in a row? Will we see Isma get his 2nd win of the season, or will we go into the break with a brand new winner? We will find out at the circuit pull the card for the French Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge, and joining me in the commentary box, as always on a Monday, is Aidan Carter. Aidan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Luke. Yeah, really looking forward to this one, like you say. First final round before the first break week of the season, and it's been a great start to the championship, hasn't it? We've had completely different races all the way through the first 3 rounds of the season, and the same few people have come out on the top each time. So, yeah, interesting to see how they deal with this one today. Again, another track that's vastly different to anything we've driven so far this season. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah,
you can't really get, well, I was about to say, you can't really get much more different between Monaco and what we've got this week, France, but Monaco's pretty unique. You can't get much different between that and probably every circuit on the calendar. We'll have a look at the championship standings after last week. If you weren't there, it was a fantastic win from 14th on the grid then for Blizzard. Matthew Alder now with a extended lead in the championship. Isma managed to finish in 2nd place, so reducing that damage ever so slightly. Max Wissel, he's now 3rd in the championship. Fusilio 4th. Got Farby, Jensen, Daneyko. Philip Walters getting his first points of the season with his first podium of the season. He's 8th in the championship, and then it is Fede, and then right down at the bottom it is H-Eagle Hadler, who is actually now a full-time driver in the Red Bull, I believe, replacing Benjamin, Ardapal Gamer, who can no longer make it for the rest of the season because of uni studies, but he might be popping back as a reserve at some point. If we have a look at the team standings, no surprise that with a double podium last time out, it is Williams on the top at the moment. Red Bull 2nd, Ferrari in 3rd. Alfa Romeo still yet to get any points, and Monaco, as we've said, absolutely brilliant race, brilliant strategy from Matthew Alder, and we're expecting that tonight you're going to need similar strategic genius to get a good result here. The alternate strategy, always powerful around France.
Yeah, it is really powerful, like you say, alternate strategy, very, very fast. The soft compound tyres are not a favourable tyre around this track. You can run them and be fine on a soft medium or a soft hard either way. They're just not really that fast of a tyre. And because it is so easy to overtake and keep up around this track, it's great for those on the alternate strategy and easy for them to keep up early on. So if the alternate strategy runners can keep out a trouble in the opening laps, I doubt that we're going to see them fall back in the early phases. In fact, they'll probably work their way forwards more likely. Yeah,
certainly. I think after 2 or 3 laps, you might even see a few cars decide that it is worth coming into the pits. We've made our own predictions. We haven't gone too brave for who we think is going to end up taking the victory in this race tonight. Aidan there's gone for Matthew Alder. I've gone for Isma, who I just feel is like he's going to want to recover something after last week. But given his record around here, you'd be surprised if Matthew Alder wasn't somewhere near the front. Pole position last season. Could have got the victory if it was a standard dry race. It wasn't, and that strategy, starting on the soft tyres after qualifying on pole, really cost him. But he has a fantastic record around this track. He's got to be the man to watch.
Yeah, he really has, hasn't he? He's got to be really, really the one to look out for, as he has been so far this season as well. I mean, it would be ridiculous to bet against him, which is why I haven't really betted against him. So, yeah, it'd be ridiculous to bet against him. And even so far, the races that we've seen so far from Matthew Alder and from Isma really as well, they've both been on another level, you've got to say, the two of them so far this season. They've worked their way through many a situation to be at the front of the field, whether they've been down in the pack because of a strategy call or whether they've not had the best of qualifyings. They've always been able to get their way to the front of the field. So by far, I would say at the moment they're the two favourites in the championship. So I'm not surprised that either one of us has picked either driver.
Yeah, certainly. They're the only drivers to have had multiple podiums so far. They've both had a pole position each. Max Wiesel, he's the other driver that's held a pole position at that first race in Portugal, and he's third in the championship. So we are starting to see those familiar names that we would perhaps expect right up at the top. But now let's head into the race, see how things are looking here at the moment. Nice and, well, I say nice and dry. It's very cloudy for qualifying at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see if it is going to stay dry. And one thing I can tell you, it is not going to be dry for the race. A bit like Portugal, we are expecting torrential rain at the start of this race, but it will dry up later on. So another, that's what, 3 races this season now out of 4, we are going to get wet weather.
Yeah, 3 out of 4, like you say, that's been weather affected. I'm sure those drivers that don't like the wet conditions are ruining the luck that they're having in this championship so far with the weather conditions. But at least this time around, it does look like the rain will ease off, like you say, in the latter half of the race. So that's good. At least we should be able to see a little bit more variation in strategy. Of course, when we saw Portugal, when everybody was on the full wets for the full race, it was nigh on impossible really to make any overtake stick. So the fact that we should be getting some transition in weather will be good, and that makes this qualifying session all that more important. It completely wipes out what we were talking about, the alternate strategy. That's no longer a thing. It now makes qualifying all that more important.
Yeah, it does. The qualifying last time around here, we saw a 126.9 from Blizzard. I won't be getting near that this time. That was pre-patch. We saw a 128.1 in F2 qualifying earlier on as Jensen's getting ready to start a hot lap. Then there's over 150 different combinations of the Paul Ricard circuit, and if it's raining in the race, you might see the drivers exploring a few different ones. But let's go on board then with Jensen, second full-time race in the Alpine. What can he do as he now heads across the start-finish line there, heading towards turn number 1 and 2. This off-camber chicane can be very tricky as well. Don't expect to see too much overtaking, even if the DRS gets activated later in the race. Almost straight-lining this little slight kink as much as you can. Now we head into 3 and 4, a much slower chicane, but again, too narrow to really get any possible overtaking. Stay to the left-hand side and give yourself that best possible run through turn 5. And now it's all about feathering the throttle, being very careful, very gentle indeed, scrubbing as little speed as you can get away with. Coming through turn number 7 before you open the DRS down the Mistral Straight. This chicane, the track of course shortened after 1986 of a tragic death of Elio De Angelis, and then the chicane added when it came back in 2018, and it is the Mistral chicane where you'll expect to see the majority of the overtaking. Jensen taking as much curb as the game allows you there, coming through turns 8 and 9 through sector 2. He's on a 49.1 at the moment. Now coming through the flat-out right-hander of Sinjes. I say flat-out, you won't be seeing too many drivers do that on lap 1 in the race. And then the double apex right-hander here of turn number 11. Almost going to treat this as 2 separate corners, staying nice and careful with that throttle into turn number 12. This is where the front tyres really start to struggle. And you can see Jensen just oversteering ever so slightly there, staying on that curb, taking the esports line through 13. Now into the long left-hander of 14, where again you'll want to stay over to the left and give yourself that best possible run. Get the best traction out of turn 15, straightening up the car on the DRS, using the last bit of ERS. And Jensen's first time is a 128.815. Very solid, very respectable first run indeed, as we have a few look at the few more times that are coming in. I think one man who's doing pretty good at the moment, though, is the Aston Martin of Danerco.
Yeah, Danerco looking pretty fast at the moment. There's quite a few people very similar on their laps as Occhiano now goes to the top, nearly 3/10 clear of his Alpine teammate. Wouters podium last time out, goes P3. Looking at Matthew Alder, he's on a good lap as well at the moment. Of course, so strong here and has been all season. Where does he go? Crosses the line and goes 1/10 of a second clear at the top of the timesheets on a 28.4. So yeah, it's looking fairly close at the moment so far. Only a 10th in it at the very top. We're still yet to see times, of course. Max Wiesel's just crossed the line, P4. He's been strong in qualifying all season long. Isma's coming towards the end of a lap as well, although I think he's invalidated. Yes, he has. So Isma's not going to set a competitive time the first time around. Danerco does go second, less than a 10th off. But yet again, it's Matthew Alder at the top of the timesheets. Well, I mean, we're sounding a little bit like a broken record at the moment, but it's still very close. Danerco and Occhiano just within range. Yeah,
Danerco and Occhiano just staying within range. Danerco, of course, getting a podium in that first race of the season in the treacherous conditions. So if he qualifies near the front, could expect to see similar things as Casper just making his way around the final corner. He was improving on this lap, taking it a bit more steady, though, through the middle sector. The former esports driver managed to pick up his first points of the season last time out. Isma's invalidated, but we'll see if he carried on pushing on that lap. And judging by the fact it was a 148.0, think that pretty much answers the question as to whether he was pushing much. Fusilio, though, he's looking pretty decent through the first sector at the moment. 2/10 of the fastest time. I think coming away from Monaco, he was just impressed to get any points, of course, using the pad. Now, not sure whether that's going to be a help or a hindrance in these wet conditions.
It's hard to say, really, isn't it? I think anything for a pad user is nothing worse for a pad user than Monaco, really, isn't it? Fusilio did a great job getting to the end of that race and scoring a few points. So he's gone past the hard point, I would say, in terms of where he'd be. I think wet conditions, it's not too much of a worry, I would say, for Fusilio running a pad. And this track as well does tend itself to be more of a level playing field between the two different types of use of, obviously, between controller and wheel. First sector's maybe more in tune with the wheel users, but the last sector's more in tune with the pad users because of the longer corners. So I don't imagine Fusilio will be struggling too much this evening. And of course, he had great pace in the first round of the season in Portugal as well. Didn't have a great qualifying, but was probably the only driver in the field that could actually make overtake sticks without relying on other people making mistakes. So if he can get a good qualifying, then he could be right at the front. And as I say that, it's just started raining. So it started raining in qualifying. I didn't realise any rain was coming. Don't know if it will have any effect on the track conditions because it looks very light, but that could be a little bit of a worry for some of those that haven't set lap times, including Isma, which is maybe why he's gone again on the same set of tyres and goes fourth on his second lap. That could be a saving grace for him. Yeah,
it could be a saving grace for Isma. We've only got about a 20% chance of rain expected for the end of this qualifying session. Compare that to the start of the race, where we've got a 93% chance of rain, and we're expecting it to be storm conditions. So we'll see whether this rain is going to affect the grip of the drivers, or whether it is going to be one of those where it just sort of puts you off when you just see it coming down on the halo. We've got plenty of support for various people in the chat. We've got support for Daneko. We've got support for ourselves at Aiden, which is nice. Can't exactly say we've got support for the PC stewards, but I think after Wednesday we were expecting that one, and you can keep asking for the name of the stewards, but it's a group of people, and it will have been a group decision. So, yep, we all have our favourites, but as long as we keep it civil, there's nothing wrong with some healthy debate. Isma in 4th place, and everyone now starting to head out on the track. I think realising if they want to get another lap in, they're going to have to go for it now.
Yeah, they really are going to have to go for it. Like you say, just watching Brock through the first sector, and his first sector is still competitive, so it doesn't look like there's much effect to the track conditions at the moment. It will just be more of a placebo effect, really, as to whether these guys are as committed to these runs as they can be. A 0.8 in the first sector is good from Brock. Didn't quite see what Fede done. He did a 0.9, so his is fairly competitive as well. Fede, another one that performed well in Portugal in the wet conditions, so he could be another person to look out for in that AlphaTauri. Yeah, it could be good that Brock and Fede are getting their laps in now, just before the rain maybe gets a little bit worse. The rain could hold off, but it's a big risk, isn't it? It's a really big risk leaving it to the last moment. Brock and Fede are lucky, I think, to get out onto the track in just in time before the weather really affects the track conditions.
Well, Brock has gone purple in the middle sector, so maybe it's just cooling the tyres down ever so slightly at the moment and making them last a bit longer. He's having a very good job. Hopefully for him, Varby gets well out of the way, and the Ferrari does. I've seen it happen in other leagues, drivers being given big penalties, and I think we've seen it a few races this season as well already. Lars at Silverstone, and if you're wondering where Lars is, he's serving the second race of his 2-race ban. You think a 5-second penalty's a bit bad. Imagine how he feels after a 2-race ban. Brock goes into 11th place at the moment. Then we'll see what Fede can do as he heads towards the finish line. The AlphaTauri drivers scored points in every race so far. 19th position, so they just lost a bit at the end of the lap there, but we are still seeing the occasional green sector time, suggesting that track conditions are still good. You can still improve out there.
Yeah, it's looking like it at the moment, isn't it? That it's right on the bubble, I would say. They weren't particularly competitive final sectors from Bock and Fede there. Fede, in fact, having the slowest final sector of anybody. Didn't see if he made a mistake, but that might be an inclination that it's just about to turn. We're seeing people on laps now. Ogiano has invalidated his lap, so he's not improving. Gil through the second sector is 12 thousandths up on his time, currently in 6th position, but that 12 thousandths would put him ahead of his teammate at the moment. So there is just enough grip out there. It's dependent on whether your first one, you had a mistake in the run and you can improve on that, and whether you're committed enough in the final sector. It's on the bubble, but I would say it's just going to get worse and worse as the session goes on now, and drivers are just running out of time, you've got to say. I think Gil's going to be one of the first drivers across the line with a competitive time on the board. Ogiano's gone straight back in the pits. He's not continuing on his set of soft compound tyres to do a second run. We'll see if Gil's lost anything in the final sector then up towards the line. Of course, the final sector is the longest sector on the track and has the one with the most corners, and he did lose time in the final sector. He lost over 1/10 of a second. So that suggests to me that it's just starting to turn now and the track's getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, Valtters did gain some time in the final sector, but not as much as he gained in the first two. So he did get up into the top 10, just ahead of Jensen, who'd set the lap previous to him. We're now on board with Asacombe, who's gone faster, or personal best, in Sector 1 and Sector 2, heading towards the final corner now, while heading, I think, down the main straight. Max Wiesel, pole sitter at round 1 of the season. He loses time in the final 2 sectors, so I think they are now just starting to struggle in these damp conditions. Asacombe was 2 tenths up in the Alpha Tauri. He needs that to really get himself into any sort of decent qualifying position, and he manages to hold that 2-tenth gap as he comes across the line, gets himself up into 16th. Dan Urco looks like he's improving in the first sector, but I'd definitely say the rain, even if it's not making the track worse, it's negating that advantage that you would be expecting to get because of the track evolution.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten rid of the track evolution, like you say, hasn't it? It's taken that element out of it, so it's fairly similar to how it was. And like I mentioned, it can be a bit of a placebo effect. Seeing rain coming down can be a bit distracting. It can put you off, and you're maybe not as committed as previous laps because you're worried that you're going to lose the car. So that may be one thing that these drivers are looking out for as well. I think the only drivers on runs now are Matthew Older and Isma at the moment. Isma's just started a run, actually. Matthew Older was a 10th down in the first sector and has not found anything in the middle part of the lap. So yeah, it's on the bubble. You can find time if you're really, really committed, like Asacombe did. He was able to hold it in the final sector, but yeah, across the board at the moment, no one's really improved.
Yeah, certainly, and it is, rather than at this moment you'd be expecting a sea of green on the TAS system. You can use !help if you want to find out more information about your favourite drivers. We'd be expecting that sea of green. We're just not getting it at the moment. I mean, Matthew Older did set a personal best in the second sector, but he's still down overall on this lap. So let's see what the Red Bull driver can do. Can he head towards the finish line and become favourite for his second pole position of the season? He cannot. 128.522, and the fact that we're still 3 tenths off a second off what we saw in F2 earlier suggests to me that the rain is really starting to have an effect. Isma about 2 tenths down as well as he comes through the second sector. Fusilio 2 tenths down through sector 1, but he is now invalidated. It would not surprise me at all if the order we're seeing on screen now, with 5 minutes 25 remaining, is the final order for this qualifying session.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, really. I don't see anybody improving. The only drivers, really, you've got to say that can improve, basically, in these conditions are Fede and Hamilton. Hamilton, obviously, is not set a time, and Fede's time's not representative, really. So they're the only ones you've got to look for now to try and move their way forward. Susilo was on a lap, but he's invalidated, so he'll stay in P8 for the time being and has dived into the pit lane. So yeah, I think pretty much every they're probably going to go out for the last one anyway, just to see if they can find anything on that final run. They may as well. The track conditions aren't terrible, so they may as well try something. But yeah, it's going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. It's going to have to take a very committed lap for anybody to improve. Brock's just started a run, and he's gone into turns 1 and 2. So we'll see what Brock's first sector's like, but he was one of the first drivers to start suffering in that final sector, so I doubt it's going to be any better.
Yeah, I mean, we're still seeing the rain, as you can see on screen right now, on the halo, seeing the drops coming down, but we're not seeing it on the camera, which you would normally expect to if it was getting heavier and heavier. And yes, still a 10th down through Sector 1. Looks very committed, and I think they all are driving flat out at the moment. It's just that the conditions aren't giving them the grip that they quite need at this moment in time. Forbes is even showing on a set of intermediates. The intermediates are definitely not going to be faster. We are still in slick tyre conditions. It's just that the slick tyres obviously aren't giving the grip that you would be expecting in the nice dry conditions. As Brock coming through the Sector 2 timing split now, he is half a second down. That is this lap done, and I don't think we're seeing any improvements. Oh, Cornet's invalidated coming through the first sector. He's a 10th down as well. Jakita and Fede are just rolling their way through first sector now for the outplayed team. Fede 2 tenths down. I think this may well be it.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be a very early and muted end to the qualifying session, unfortunately, but that is the case of the weather. And I think that weather may have caught a lot of people out. Like we said, it was only predicted, the rain percentage was only about 20-25%, but it came down, well, just as everybody was finishing their first runs in the session, which, as if there was any rain expected for these drivers, is probably a lot earlier than they were expecting. So I think a lot of people were caught out by that, especially people that you would expect to be towards the front of the field. Sakita has a massive moment for the Mistral chicane, but manages to keep it out of the wall. But drivers like Fede, Yakita, Cornet, Asacombe, really all 4 of them, they're drivers that regularly feature inside the top 10 in qualifying, and they're way down the field. I think all 4 of them have probably been caught out by the rain coming down a lot earlier than they expected.
Yeah, certainly, and that is just making things hard for him at the moment. Xander's just about to head onto another lap, and the fact that the majority of the cars are in the pits say they're either hoping that the rain had stopped. In fact, Jensen's retired from the session, so that says all you need to know about what he thinks. I've got a few heading out on outlaps, but yeah, I think the majority here are thinking, you know what, this is done. There's no point heading out there. Might as well give myself a bit of a longer break. And yeah, Zander 1.4 seconds down now through the first sector. We are not seeing any improvements at all. I think he had backed off on that lap as well. Asakoma also losing time coming through that first sector and losing the rear of the car, and very nearly losing his front wing coming through turn number 6 and 7. I think we can safely say that is it for qualifying. Matthew Alder is on pole position once again from Danirko. Oggiano in 3rd and Isma in 4th. The man second in the championship as he goes for a bit of a ride over the red and blue tarmac strips here at Paul Ricard. He's going to have it all to do in the race.
Yeah, have it all to do. Like you say, the changing conditions are probably one of the only opportunities Isma will have in this race to maybe get some overtakes done, because of course it is so difficult to overtake in the wet conditions. More crucial enough though is that Isma of course set that lap on that second lap on that set of soft compound tyres. So really smart of him to back off straight away when he realised it wasn't going to be a good lap and go again on the same set of tyres. Otherwise he could have been a lot further down the field. So that qualifying session seems a little bit more like damage limitation than anything else for Isma, and it's kind of a shame that qualifying sessions ended so early. It's very close, and that's after just one run. So I would have loved to have seen what everybody else could have done in a full dry qualifying session, but that's not going to be the case, unfortunately. Majority of the field have retired. Oggiano's continuing on, but Oggiano is a second down on his lap coming through the second sector. So yeah, the track is well past his best.
Yeah, certainly. I'm surprised Hamilton didn't go out for another run earlier on, because he hadn't set a lap time, and you never know what he could have done. Maybe just started a few places higher up the grid, and we saw already from Portugal. In storm conditions, it is extremely hard to overtake with no DRS, especially in modern Formula 1 cars. Isma's carrying on here, but yeah, 3 temps down through Sector 1. He's not gaining all that. He might as well just come into the pits in another car that has a mini moment coming out of turn 6 and 7. But yeah, Matthew Alder fastest, Danirko second, Oggiano third. We've only got 2 cars out on track. We've only got 3 other cars that are in the pits and have yet to retire. But with 30 seconds to go, qualifying is pretty much over. And it's all going to be about different strategies in this race and seeing when the rain stops. Because we are expecting, as the race goes on, unlike Portugal, where it was heavy rain throughout the race, we are expecting it to dry up and possibly even get to slick tyres towards the end. So, could be a 1 or 2 stop race. And if you stay 1 lap up longer on a set of tyres that aren't good for the weather, that could ruin your race easily.
Yeah, it can really ruin your race, like you say. Timing the pit stop from the wets to the intermediates and then the interts to the slicks, if we get there, can be the decision really between winning this race and dropping well down the field. I mean, I've commentated on many a race where drivers have pitted just a lap too late and dropped 6 or 7 places because of it. And that's a problem as well with a track like Paul Ricard. When it becomes wet around Paul Ricard, because the track is so long and the corners are so long, the difference in pace between the wets and the slicks is actually quite big here. So the lap becomes a lot longer when it becomes wet. So yeah, if you're staying out just a lap too long, you can lose well over 5 or 6 seconds in just a single lap.
Yeah, you certainly can. So let's head and see what the qualifying results are. Hopefully they will come up on the screen at the moment, but we do know anyway. Matthew Alder, of course, fastest of everyone in this qualifying session. Sort of what we expected, of course, around this circuit. I believe it was Danirko in second, Oggiano in 3rd place. Now, he's starting to show a bit more pace, actually, in the last few races. Did a fantastic job last time out, of course. He managed to damage his front wing, but then did a brilliant job coming back up through the field and getting his fastest lap in all that, as we actually haven't seen the grid results. It looks like we are heading straight towards what the weather is like, and you can see it's absolutely throwing it down in this race session, a bit like what we predicted and pretty much exactly what we expected.
Yeah, exactly what we expected, like you say. So adds a whole new challenge, and this is the second time this season we're going to see full wets, and possibly the third time we'll see intermediates in a race. So my. These drivers cannot catch a break from this wet weather, can they? The only dry race they've had was Monaco, and that's not exactly the easiest of dry races to attend. So yeah, it's been a bit difficult for our top tier so far this season. And of course, the problem now with the wet conditions, like it was in Portimao, corners that you don't really think about become so much more difficult in the wet conditions. Like, I mean, we saw it a couple of times in qualifying. Turn 6 becomes a lot more difficult around here. You can easily spin just by touching the curb on the inside. Of course, turn 10 at the end of the second part of the Mistral straight, that becomes a lot more difficult in the wet conditions as well. So there's a lot of corners here that the drivers have to be wary of that they don't get caught out on.
Yeah, I think certainly if you get it just a bit wrong on the traction, you're going to find yourselves in really, really big problems. I mean, if you can nip round to my house and cook me a Valentine's meal in the next 3 hours and 30 minutes, I will be anyone's Valentine. The things I will do for food and some of the things I'm going to do over the next 27 laps is commentate over what should be a fantastic French Grand Prix at the Le Castellet circuit. 5.842 kilometres, 3.630 miles, 15 turns, 2 DRS zones, which I don't think we're going to see in action for quite a while, and 15 corners. Make this quite a tough circuit in the dry, and imagine what it is going to be like in the wet conditions. As we can see the tyres that everyone is on. Now that is interesting. We were told storm conditions, and you can see it is extremely wet out there, but a few drivers, including the man started in second, have gone for a set of the intermediates. Now, this could be a similar strategy to what the man of the moment, Jarno Opmeer, did in F1 Esports in China, of course. Started on the intermediates for the first few laps, was definitely the wrong call, but 4 or 5 laps into that race, they became the faster tyre, and then, of course, when everyone else pitted, he's managed to get away with things.
Yeah, it's really interesting call, isn't it? It could be the right call. Like, well, as we know, it is going to dry out at some point. So if they can get those intermediates up to temperature and working nicely, that they're not a lot slower than the wets, and then stay out when obviously the wets have to pit for the intermediates, that could play beautifully into their hands. And the pit lane loss around here is quite big, of course. Even though you cut that final corner, it's a 37-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's a slow pit lane, and it's a long exit to the pit lane as well. So you're losing about 24 seconds for a pit stop here. So, and any lesser pit stops you can make in a race around France, the better. So it's worth the risk. I mean, Denurco, in championship-wise, is not in any strong position at the moment. Fusilo's a bit further up in the championship, so surprised to see him take a bit of a risk, but I'm not surprised people further down, Xander, Cornet and Fede, I'm not surprised they've gone for the intermediates. They may as well do something because they know it's going to be difficult to overtake in these conditions. So it could work. My only worry with it is we know tyre wear around this track is incredibly high. So even if they do stay out until the full wet runners come in, there's no guarantee that they're going to make those intermediates last until the dry conditions.
Yeah, certainly. It could well be a situation where they're just going to have to come in a bit later on but for another set of intermediates. But that could still be the faster way. I think this is going to be a very interesting start to the race. Danirko in second on that set of the intermediate tyres. Matthew Alder on the pole position then on that set of the wet tyres. And we're seeing some other drivers as well. Hamilton didn't set a lap in qualifying. Of course, was fastest in qualifying last time out. He did have actually... Just remember, he did have that qualifying ban, which explains exactly why he didn't set a lap in qualifying. Did get a qualifying ban for blocking an extra car at Monaco. And as it dries up, as our reigning champion in the top tier says, Joost saying that as it dries up, the intermediates will be the better tyre. It is all about how quickly is it going to dry up. Because if it's more than a pit stop behind, then you've really sort of screwed yourself with this strategy. The final car's coming into position then, as we wait for the lights to come on here at Paul Ricard to get the French Grand Prix underway. And the lights are now coming on. We've got 5 lights. And they're out here at Paul Ricard. What are the starts like? And straight away, Matthew Alder get a much better start than Danirko, who's got absolutely no traction off the line. And I think Oggiano's going to be able to have a go on the run down in towards turn number 1. So it's Matthew Alder leading. Oggiano in second place. Danirko just holding on to third for now as Max Wiesel's having to hop over the curb there. Everyone's managed to get through turn 1 cleanly. And we'll see how things go further on. Casper and Isma battling as well. Isma, of course, not being able to warm his tyres up. Has had an absolutely nightmare first lap of this race. But Matthew Alder is just escaping at the front of the field. 1.2 seconds ahead as H. Eagle, his teammate, facing the wrong way round at turn number 3 and 4. He's now back in the right direction. And it is Matthew Alder leading 1.5 seconds ahead of the field. Oggiano in second, Danirko in third. The rest of the intermediate runners really dropping towards the back.
Yeah, they're really falling down the field, aren't they? As Hamilton gets a 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining a position. I was just watching that, actually. Eagle was running 3 wide on the way down to turn 3, and no one really backed out, and he ended up the worst in the situation. Fusilo as well, who was 8th on the grid, has plummeted down the field because of that incident as well, down to 19th behind all of the other intermediate runners. So horrible first lap for both Isma and Fusilo and H. Eagle. Horror show for first lap. A great lap for Matthew Alder. Casper down the inside of Giel as well at turn 10. That's a bold move, and he gets the move done. Casper's had a brilliant start to this race in the McLaren up to P6. Isma now trying to work his way down the inside, but there's not a gap in the second part, although Giel gets very sideways. So now Isma down the inside for turn number 12 should have the better line for the corner and gets the move done. Back up to 7th. Giel loses 2 places in 3 corners.
Yeah, certainly. So Gale, that just can happen in the dry. Never mind the wet round here. You get offline for a few corners, and Gale again's gone very deep into turn number 14 there.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Casper, a really, really late dive on Suku, but got the move done. I was just riding on board with him. That was a lovely move. Casper's had a brilliant first lap. He's up to 5th. Yeah,
brilliant first lap from Casper. Sometimes I think that experience in these conditions really comes to the fore, and Casper having a brilliant first lap. Could he get his first podium since, I believe, season number 28? He was so close on various occasions last time, but still a long way to go as Isma now battling with the two Haas cars. We're almost going 3 wide on the run down towards turn number 3, and it is Isma up into 6th place, Gil in 7th. Suku's had to cut over the curb, and that might allow Valters to have a go. The Williams and the Haas cars, as we've seen so often in Formula 1 over the last few years. We might be seeing once again here, but not usually for the points places. That is now Walters in 8th place, Suku in 9th. We'll have a look at the position changes then. Biggest winner at this race has been Asacombe. He's gone up 10 places and he's all over the back of Suku, so wouldn't be surprising to see him gain another place here down the inside into the Mistral chicane. Can't quite get that move done, and as you'll see, there is a yellow fuel light on Asacombe's car. Now, for those fans who aren't aware, that means they're running a deficit on fuel. They've not got enough fuel in to finish the race, but obviously in these conditions, that's not really a problem, as you are a lot more gentle on the throttle, as Max Wiesel's still all over the back of Danerco and can't quite get that move done.
Yeah, Danerco's doing a brilliant job on the intermediates at the moment, isn't he? Of course, Matthew Watt and Oggiano have disappeared up the road, but Danerco's holding third quite nicely at the moment, and the longer he holds it, the better it's going to get from his Brock now getting the move done on Jensen further down. Up into P11 goes the McLaren, so good move from the McLaren driver. Both McLarens now on the move. Asacombe still all over the back of Suku. Both Haas cars have had a horrible lap so far. Suku is understeering all over the road. I don't know if he's overheating those wet compound tyres or not, but he just can't seem to keep the car on the racing line, and Asacombe trying to go around the outside of the last corner to make it the inside for turn number 1. It's going to have to be late on the brakes. It's not a very deep braking zone for turn number 1, and that Haas is just a little bit faster in a straight line. Asacombe keeps it down the inside. Suku tries to squeeze him against the curb and holds the place for the time being, but you can tell Suku is a lot slower here. And again, Asacombe gets a better run out the corner, trying to get the run towards turn number 3 down the inside. It's a late move down the inside. Can he get the move done around the outside of 4? It's going to be the inside of 5 again. Great racing between the two of them. Very tight angle for turn number 5, but Asacombe gets the move done. Suku trying to come back at him down the inside of 6, though. Great battling between the two of them, and Asacombe drifting it through turn number 6. Brilliant stuff between the pair of them. They're still side by side, and somehow Suku's able to hold on to 9th for the time being, but Asacombe with the inside should hold it. But now Brock's going to try and make it 3 wide in the middle. These guys are really holding each other up, but it's great racing. Brock backs out. Suku somehow holds on to 9th.
Yeah, Suku somehow holding up tonight. Great racing, as you expect to see here at PSGL. Really fantastic battling. Really great respect between all of these drivers as well. Respect so important in league racing, as I think Jensen's now going to try and get involved in this. It's an absolute gaggle of cars fighting for 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Xander not too far behind either. And I think Asacombe all of a sudden, despite looking for the last lap in a bit like he was going to shoot his way up into 9th place, is now struggling to stay in that points position. Just a tiny bit of contact there, and we know what the physics do on this game. Sends him round, and I think also perhaps just a tad too eager on the throttle, so he is down into 18th. I think he's got away without any damage. Further up the field though, Danerco still manages to hold off Max Wiesel, doing a very good job at the moment, but still, as you would expect, losing out on pace to the drivers ahead of him. But he's 1:44.6 that lap around. Xander further back, I mean, obviously we can't really count Suku, Brock and all those drivers because they were having a massive battle, but Xander further back's doing, you know, sort of 1:46s, 1:45s at the moment. So Danerco's still showing some really good pace on these inters. If it's the rain damper, well, lessens off, I should say, in the next few laps, he could be in a really great position.
He could be, like you say, yeah, if it gets a little bit drier in the next few laps, it's going to play right into his hands, because while he's obviously still quite a way off the race leader, the fact that he's been able to hold 3rd track position is crucial for his race. It means that obviously there's only 2 people in front, so when the intermediate tyres become the better tyre, he's got clean air that he can drive into and use the pace of those tyres. So brilliant opening parts of the race for Danerco. Max tried to move at turn 11 on the previous lap down the inside, but Danerco just held it around the outside, didn't struggle for grip, wasn't all over the road, and just kept the place quite easily. So he's not struggling to defend from Max Wiesel behind. Max is desperately trying to get a move done. He's got great speed through turn number 10, but just can't get close enough to think about a move into turn 11. Dinerco holds on for another lap, it seems. He's doing a great job in third, like you're saying. On this lap so far, actually, Dinerco's not really lost anything to Oggiano, so I wonder if we're already starting to reach that transition point. There's not a lot of standing water, it looks like, left on the track in terms of puddles, so I think it's already starting to get close to intermediate conditions.
Yeah, it is. He's doing, definitely doing a good job at the moment. And like you said, offline, you're definitely going to be struggling. You can just see the puddle sort of on the inside as they come out of turn 15, the final corner. But online, yeah, there is not a lot of puddles at the moment, as Brock now manages to dive his way past Suku up into 9th place, managing to do what Asacombe couldn't. And you can see Jensen there. I'm not in the background. I'm not sure whether he was just going over to try and defend, or maybe just going over to try and cool those wet tyres ever so slightly. But Suku thinking about fighting back on Brock, forces the McLaren to take a deeper line into turn number 1. That might give him a better exit. Gets on the curb. That is everything done for that one. Lap number 5 then of this race, as Jensen showing that if you don't make a move stick here, it is very easy to pay the price for that, with Jensen getting himself up into the top 10. Lap number 5, and it is this man, Matthew Alder, leading by 3.3 seconds at the moment from Oggiano. Dinerco, though, still holding on. And like you said, the last couple of laps, prior to lap 4, Max Wiesel was all over the back of him, and already we're starting to see that Dinerco's not being hounded anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. It's starting to level out, isn't it? Dinerco's doing a brilliant job on those tyres, and crucially as well, Dinerco has double the amount of ERS that Max Wiesel does. So Max is pushing to try and pass the Aston and can't at the moment, which is another telling sign that it's just not working at the moment in terms of the full wets, and it's playing almost into Dinerco's hands as again Max is understeering wide at turn number 10. The full wets, I think, are just starting to overheat a little bit. We're seeing drivers go offline. We're seeing a lot of understeer from a lot of these cars, and yeah, it's just starting to fall away, I think, from some of the wet runners. Of course, Brock, that lead runner of those in the really the second half of the field at the moment, they're still fighting now as Xander and Zuku go side by side, and that's crucial. Xander on the inters passing Suku, who's on the wets, and Corner's going to follow through. So the inters are working just as well as the full wets now.
Yeah, it's a bit like Portugal. We're seeing Suku just struggle a bit in these full wet conditions. He is definitely a very quick driver, but these full wet conditions don't seem to suit him for whatever reason, as Jaquita now sends one up the inside. Bit of a late lunge into turn number 15. The two of them almost getting locked together, and that might just give Fede a chance in the AlphaTauri. But yes, that lap around definitely we're starting to see a bit more from the intermediate tyres, as we've now got some supports for Isma in the chat, in 6th place at the moment. About 10 seconds off the lead. He might find it pretty difficult to get the victory, but if he calls the strategy right with the transition, we are expecting it to definitely transition to intermediate tyres, and it might just even transition to full slick conditions later on in this race. But for now, we're going to carry on watching this battle, see if Fede can get his way past Suku, past Jaquita, and it will now be interesting to see whether Xander and Corner can start catching up to the back of that pack.
Yeah, that'd be really crucial, won't it? Of course, they've got a second gap back to Jensen. See if they can get closer than a second to the back of that Alpine and see what they can do. And then Brock, of course, just in front of Jensen. Then 5 seconds up the road to Philip Wouters and Giel. So that top 8 have really dropped the rest of the field after that whole battle that went on between Suku. And yeah, like you said, again, Suku in the full wet conditions, not comfortable whatsoever. Was able to hold positions better in Portugal, but there's a lot more overtaking opportunities around France, and that's proving to be the case. Suku's just plummeting through the field at the moment. I think he's banking on maybe his setup maybe working a little bit better in the second half of the race. So we could see him fight back through the field, and so slow through turn 11 that Fede ran clean into the back of him there. Lucky to get away with it. But yeah, Suku's just really struggling at the moment. And Xander and Cornet are slightly closing in on Jensen, who's slightly closing in on Brock, who's slightly closing in on the back of Wouters. So it's just starting to concertina up a little bit now.
I think we are pretty much bang on the crossover point here, where wet tyres and intermediate tyres, there's not a lot between them, but we are expecting that to obviously mean it's going to transition to the set of intermediates. I can only see the wet tyres getting worse from here on in, and the intermediates doing better. Although the wet tyres do generally have better tyre wear, that's not going to make any difference whatsoever if it dries out. And you can see the rain nowhere near as heavy as we go on board with Xander, nowhere near as heavy as it was on our cameras at the start of this race. So I think it clearly is drying out, and we're going to have to see the wet runners coming for the set of intermediates. If it stayed at full wets, as we saw in Portugal, you can definitely go the entire race on a set of the full wet tyres, but not when it is like this. They will just be overheated, as Fede still all over the back of Suku, Jaquita, Cornet and Xander have really started to break away from this Haas car. You can just see that little trepidation on the throttle is costing him through some of these corners. And Fede all over the back of him. Will he be able to have a go into the Bistro chicane? Suku's going to defend the inside line, so you're going to have to go all the way around the outside on the brakes, which is a brave move in the dry. But fantastic racing there. Fede up into 14th. I think that says all you need to know about the state of the tyres at this moment in time.
That was a lovely move from Fede. Committed on the curb as well in the braking zone, all the way around the outside. Like you say, that's difficult enough to do in the dry in the wet. It's so difficult to brake that late and get the car stopped. But he's done it beautifully. And Suku, second driver to get a 3-second time penalty, gets it at turn 10. Yeah, Fede getting that move done quite easily. And crucially as well, on that last lap, Denurco for the first time in this race was in the 43s, which is the same times as what Oggiano and Matthew Alder are doing, as Matthew Alder's now just on a 42. So the track is definitely getting drier. It's whether the wets can keep up with that pace, of course, through across the line. Denurco mid 43s. So Denurco's pace is only improving, and he's actually dropped Max now. Max is over a second behind, and Nikita's in. Nikita's the first one in.
The key to the first one then to take the gamble. I think last lap, Denurco was faster than everyone but Matthew Alder. He's just different gravy around this track, I think. I can't really think of a different expression at this moment in time. He's just so good around the Paul Ricard circuit. But we saw the weather changes catch him out last season in PSGL, and it was Joost who ended up taking the victory from Duncan and Isma. So maybe we'll see it catch him out again here, and everyone will be looking to see what Jaquita will do. And of course, he'll have had the information from Fusilio as his teammate, so he'll have that bit of knowledge about what the intermediate tyres are like. It's great to see some support from some of our fellow commentators here in the chat, so make sure to check out their streams and all the other ones on the PSGL YouTube channel. They are all available, if not straight after the race, definitely in the couple of hours afterwards, and always the morning after. But Matthew Alder still in the lead in this race, 4.7 seconds ahead at the moment from Oggiano. I can only see that gap dropping now between Denurco and the Alpine.
Yeah, I can't see it. Yeah, growing, like you say, it's got to be coming down. And what you said about Matthew Alder, I think this is a bit of a killer combination, isn't it, for Matthew Alder? France and full wet conditions. He is just unstoppable in both of those senses and is playing beautifully into his hands. But Denurco is now taking chunks out of Oggiano's advantage over him and has dropped Max by 2 seconds now. So it's very clearly intermediate conditions. And Max has confirmed that by coming in. So Max is the first of our race leaders to come into the pit lane. Isma's followed him in. So that could be crucial that Max and Isma have come in now. If Oggiano and Matthew Alder suddenly really start struggling on these tyres, Max and Isma could gain a massive undercut here. I was going to say the problem for Yakita here is Yakita's come out directly behind Fabi. So any pace he could have had could be lost here because he's going to get stuck behind traffic. And you can see he's basically pushing the Ferrari through the final sector of the lap. Yeah,
last lap around, Denurco was 7/10 of a second faster than Matthew Alder, and he dives it down the inside there. I think more because Fabi was going into the pits, but even if he wasn't, I don't think there's a lot the Ferrari driver would have been able to do about it. So we are now starting to see more drivers come in for a set of the intermediates. That's going to mean Denurco will lead the race. Zander will be pretty close between him and Matthew Alder, to be honest, but I think Zander might just take second place and Cornet in third. But their intermediates aren't going to last much longer, so they might be coming into the pits soon. But they have got that experience on these tyres. It's the intriguing features here. It looks like, well, I'd argue that the wet tyres probably were the tyre to start the race on, but only for the first few laps. The only reason we're going to see the intermediates really come good is if it dries out very quickly and they don't have to do that extra pit stop. Otherwise, it was worth a gamble. They've not lost anything, but they won't have really gained anything.
Yeah, exactly. They've not lost anything, like you say, but not gained at the same time. So it's just kind of leveled out, at least by going on the intermediates. They're trying something different. And Matthew Alder, our race leader, is into the pits. I'm sure Oggiano will be following him into the pit lane. No, all he dives in at the last moment. That's crossed the white line. I think that's probably going to be a penalty for Oggiano. And then he speeds into the pit lane. So bit of an indecisive move there from Oggiano. Late call into the pit lane, and that's probably going to cost him. Casper's in as well. I'm sure Wouters will be coming in. Yep, Wouters is in and Brock is in as well. So Denurco into the lead of the race and sets the fastest lap of the race as well to boot. So Denurco into the lead, and Denurco is going to have a massive lead in this race. Where does Matthew Alder come out, though? Matthew Alder crosses the pit exit now. It's going to be close between him and Zander. Zander's just ahead. Cornet's just ahead as well. Alder comes out just behind in fourth, but crucially his tyres are 9 laps younger.
Yeah, 9 laps younger tyres, and that will be a 5 seconds penalty for Oggiano. I know that because I tried to appeal a 5 second speeding penalty around this circuit and forgot to mention that half my tyre had crossed the white line at the same time, and I got myself a 5 second pit lane penalty. So That was a bit of a waste of time, Luke. But lap number 10 at the moment. Definitely the driver's not wasting any time at the moment. Danica with a 13.7 lead now. First 30.7 second lead now. Cornet all over the back of him. But we might see a bit of a difference between fresh intermediates here and the older intermediates. Cornet is all over the back of Zander. But let's not forget Matthew Alders in there with this as well, as they're weaving their way all over the straight. I think just about legal. And we are expecting it to dry out towards the end of the race. We just don't know. We haven't had any safety cars so far, so we might not actually get dry tyres at the end of the race, but we are expecting between 45 and 60 minutes into this race, we are going to see dry conditions, which now, if it's near the 45-minute mark, would probably be around about lap 23, lap 24, where we're seeing the dry tyres as down the inside goes Matthew Alder into turn 11. You don't see many moves there, but that's for confidence he's got in that Red Bull. And that's for confidence he's got on those fresher tyres. He's going to get this move done surely on the exit. Bit of contact between the two of them. And Cornet is not giving in at this moment in time. He's going to have the outside line for turn number 14. But when that turns into the inside line for turn 15, there's not going to be too much he can do, I think. Matthew Alder still hanging in there. And I think now it's a straight drag race. And with that extra traction, with the extra grip, Matthew Alder is up into third. That's the difference between the fresh tyres. That's what Daneco and Zander have got to think about here.
Yeah, that is what you've got to think about. Like you say, Matthew Alder kind of caught Cornet sleeping a little bit. He was thinking about the move on the way into turn 11 and didn't go for it. And Cornet, following the normal racing line, just left the door open in the middle part of turn 11. And Alder snuck up the inside. Nicely moved done. Very smart driving for Matthew Alder. You'd expect nothing less. And I doubt it's going to be long before he is past Ando. I'd give it maybe a lap, and he should surely be past this Alfa Romeo and up into second place. It's then all about whether Daneco can get those intermediates to the dry conditions, or if it doesn't dry out, whether he can get them to the end. We're only 10 laps in. We're not even at halfway distance yet. So if he's struggling for tyres now, then it's going to be a long old race for Daneco. His pace is still going up, so he's not losing in terms of actual speed, but it's dependent on whether the percentage wear on those intermediates are too high for him to get to the end of the race without having to make another pit stop, as Isma gets past Fusillo for P8. So Isma's working his way back through the field once again. Yeah,
Isma with the fastest lap. Well, did have the fastest lap briefly, but now Farby has got it. Obviously, every car that's crossing the line, we're seeing that lap start to come down as Matthew Alder's going to go for his almost now trademark move down the inside into turn 11 once again. And he's got that done a lot easier this time, down the inside into that corner. And that is the Red Bull man up into second. Alder just starting to fly his way through the field. I can tell you, Daneco's tyres now are on about 41% on that front left. So he's going to be in punch territory round about lap 19, lap 20 in this race. He needs it to dry out sooner rather than later. Would not be surprised if he and everyone else who started on a set of the intermediates have to come in for another set of tyres, because they were gaining time in the first few laps before the pit stops. Now they're just going to be losing time, as unsurprisingly, Alder and then Oggiano set the fastest laps of the race.
Yeah, fastest lap of the race on those sides, and Matthew Alder did that 41.4 whilst overtaking another car, so there is a lot of pace in that Red Bull, and surprised Zander didn't see that move coming, considering Matthew Alder just pulled the same move off on Cornet the lap before, so he kind of just left the door open and let him go. I suppose it's maybe not wise fighting Matthew Alder at this point in the race, because look at the gap he's already pulled. He's flying away from Zander and Cornet. Fede right behind Cornet now as well, so Oggiano will be the next driver to have a run, but Oggiano's got 3 cars now, crucially, between himself and Matthew Alder, so he is now completely out of touch with the Red Bull if he wasn't already. So going to be a long old race now from Oggiano to maybe have a run at Daneco at this point in the race as well. It's now the pace between Daneco and Matthew Alder what the difference is, but I think the second that Matthew Alder's past Zander, Daneco's upped his pace a little bit.
Yeah, maybe just saving a tiny bit of those tyres. And Oggiano, he's not only got 3 cars to try and get up to the back of Matthew Alder, he's got 1 5-second penalty, and we believe very possibly another one coming, if that is reported to the stewards, of course, about the pit lane entry. On board then with Gil, he's in 11th place. Both of the Hassers dropping outside of the points after a good qualifying session. Gil has lost 5 places. Suku lost 13, really struggling in this race. As you can see, starting on the intermediates for Zander, Cornet and Fede, just how many places they have gained. Fusilio down 2 after that spin earlier on, and I think he's going to be down at 3rd position here, because Gil, look at that grip, down the inside into turn 13. Absolutely nothing Fusilio could do. He's going to try and get the cutback on the exit, not able to do. And the former champion is now up into the top 10. Just another sign, if we needed it, that the fresher intermediates just giving the drivers a little bit more pace and a little bit more confidence at this moment in time. And again, the only man who seems to be doing a good job on the older ones is Daneco.
Yeah, Daneko's got solid pace running in the mid 41s at the moment, but it's just dwarfed by the fact that Matthew Order's done a 40.9. Matthew Order is in another league. I think we need an F0 after this race just for Matthew Order, because he is in a completely different league pace-wise at the moment, and he's still going faster in the first part of the lap. It's just dependent on whether it dries out before they put on the slick compound tyres. So you've got to say at this point in the race, it's a straight fight between Daneko and Matthew Order for this race win. It's all dependent, like we say, on when it dries out and if it dries out in time for Daneko, which at the moment, you've got to say, the rate has dried out in the last few laps. Doesn't look that likely. So I think Daneko's either holding out for a little bit of luck or maybe hoping that Matthew Order makes a mistake, which is highly unlikely.
Yeah, maybe just holding out for a safety car or something, but there's not many walls close to the track here at France for you to find a safety car, and Matthew Order maybe does belong in F0. I think there's a few of the other drivers might be thinking he might FO at this moment in time, and life would be a tiny bit easier for them on this grid. He's been absolutely... I think a few before the season we expected him to put in some really good performances. 2 wins so far. Portugal, bad qualifying and really tough to overtake around there in the wet conditions. But he's really recovered since then. Cornet then still all over the back of Zander as Wouters now gets his way past Fusilio. These two keeping Fede at bay. And now Oggiano trying to get onto the back of these. With that 5-second penalty, he's really going to have to try and make some moves in the field. But it's still looking like another good solid race from the Alpine.
Yeah, fairly solid race so far, like you say. He's had great pace as well in this race. Of all the people that started on the wets, he was the second fastest. He was the only one that was pulling away, really, while everybody else got stuck behind Daneko. Oggiano's had good pace in this race. It's, yeah, like you say, the 2 penalties now that could be lingering over his head, and how quickly he can get past this traffic in front, because Max is bringing that gap down to the back of the Alpine, and he's dragging Isma and Casper with him. Isma and Casper still doing a great job in this race. Casper has massively underfueled that car, because we're halfway in and he's still got a yellow warning light. So he has taken a lot of fuel out of that car, hoping that he can save all of it by the end of the race. But yeah, Max, Isma and Casper really closing in on the back of Oggiano now, but Oggiano's just not close enough to the back of Fede to make a move yet.
Yeah, can't quite get close enough, and Fede, after losing his form slightly last week, sort of recovered it here. Maybe another driver, the opposite in fact of Suko, he seems to really love these wet conditions, getting a brilliant result in Portugal, getting his 5th place, his best result in the top tier of PSGL, got a 9th place in Britain and 11th in Monaco, and he's in 5th at the moment, but I don't think he's going to be there for too much longer. Down the inside into turn number 10. Yes, that is a very tough corner to try to make a move, but I think with the grip that Oggiano's got here, he should just be able to brake later, get that move done into the second apex of turn number 11. And there we go, Oggiano is now up into 5th place, and he'll set his sights on catching Cornet and Zander. Even with that first 5-second penalty, I would not count him out for a podium at this moment in time. Maybe if he does get a second one, though, that might just be a bit tough for him to overcome. Further back, Philip Wouters all over the back of Geel at the moment. These two on those fresher tyres, they've got a long gap to try and catch to those cars up ahead, and it looks like it's only really... I mean, we're still expecting these drivers on the older intermediates to have to pit for a second set, but if it doesn't dry out, some of these drivers like Matthew, Max, Isma, Oggiano as well, and I think everyone else who came in off the wet tyres, they'll be pretty close towards getting these intermediates to the end as well.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as well. Like you say, Daneko is probably going to be about lap 19 by the time he reaches that puncture territory. So, and Matthew Order and the likes of that would have to have done about 18 or 19 laps on these tyres. And of course, the track is a lot drier than it was earlier on, so they're pushing a lot harder and the times are a lot quicker. So naturally, the tyre wear's a lot higher. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for some of these drivers to get those into the end as well. It's all about... You've got to nurse them at this point. If you're someone like Matthew Older, you don't need to push that hard. I think we probably might not even be pushing. We don't know, but he doesn't need to push that hard because we know that if it doesn't dry out, Daneko's not making the end. And Matthew Older's got a comfortable margin over everybody else that is on the same strategy as him. So he just needs to nurse the tyres and not push them too hard. It's whether they recognise that, whether the drivers have recognised that they can get the inters to the end or not, because you can very quickly take a lot of life out of them in the first 5 or 6 laps of the stint and then never really recover from it.
Yeah, one man who's definitely not nursing his tyres at the moment is Cornet in the Aston Martin, yet to get a podium in the top tier of PSGL. He's looking pretty good at the moment in net 3rd place when you consider the penalties for the other drivers, and it does seem like he's got the pace over Zander, just can't quite get that move done, and now he might have to go into defensive mode as Oggiano's starting to close up. Still, we're seeing the lap times come down from Matthew Older, 1:39.805, doing a brilliant job at this moment in time. 10 seconds though to Daneyko, who we know does have to come into the pits. It is impossible, never mind unlikely, it is impossible to get those intermediates towards the end of the race without having a puncture. He would be over 100% at his current tyre wear, and that's pretty much the only point where you are definitely going to get a puncture. So we're going to see him come into the pits, we imagine, for another set of intermediates, because we don't think it'll be dry enough at that point to go for a set of dry tyres. As further back, Brock battling with Fusilio down the inside into turn number 3. That is the McLaren up into 12th.
Yeah, McLaren making his way through. So both McLarens have had pretty strong races so far, you've got to say. Brock's worked his way through after a not so strong qualifying. Casper's obviously had a good race so far and is continuing to clamber onto the back of Isma and Max at the moment. So both McLarens looking at a pretty solid result, you've got to say, so far. They're looking at points with both cars at the moment. So yeah, doing a great job is Brock and Casper at the moment. Another one you've got to look out for in this race as well is Gil. Gil now in 10th position, of course. Previous champion, of course, of this division. He's got Philip Maltas directly behind him. They're in a lot of clean air at the moment. It's going to be close when Daneyko pits as to when he comes out close to them or not. He's going to be very close to the likes of Gil and Wouters, and those two could play a crucial part in this race. If Daneyko comes out behind the pair of them and is held up, Daneyko may not be able to capitalise on people struggling on their old inters by the end if it doesn't dry up.
Yeah, I think if Daneyko pits now, he'd probably come out round about where Isma and Casper are, but every single lap he is losing time to those drivers as it is another fastest lap of the race for Matthew Alder. Reminder, if you finish in the top 10, you do get that fastest lap point. Oggiano, I think, became the first driver this season to get that fastest lap point, and Matthew Alder is determined that he's going to get it on this occasion, as now Jaquita gets ahead of Fusilio, the only pad user in the field, really starting to struggle now in these conditions on those older set of the intermediate tyres. But it's worth just carrying on until they're over that 70% point, until it dries out. They're really committed to this strategy on this occasion, and still Cornet all over the back of Xander. Can't get the moves done, and the rain's still coming down with just over 10 laps to go. Now though, Oggiano's all over the back of him. I wonder if that's going to give Cornet a little bit of the hurry up, as Xander very determined to try and break the toe down the straight.
Yeah, really determined, like you say, trying to break the toe of the Aston Martin. And Xander's done a great job so far of holding back the pressure from the second Aston Martin in this race, but look at Cornet through the mistrust chicane, basically pushing that Alfa Romeo through the corner, as Hamilton now getting a penalty down in 20th. He's having a miserable race at the moment in that other Alfa Romeo. Cornet, he's got to try and get a run through 10 and up towards 11 if he wants to get this move done. He's faster than through turn 10, but there's no differential between the intermediate tyres between the two of these drivers, so it's going to be difficult. He's thinking about a move down the inside, but he doesn't have the grip to turn the car underneath the Alfa Romeo of Xander and has to stay in 4th for the time being. Oggiano still can't find a way through, and Max now is onto the back of Fede, so they've started to catch this pack. It's now Jensen, the next driver to get past Fusilio, who, after a solid qualifying and was the second person to start on the intermediate tyres, he's had an absolute horror show in this race and is just falling down the pack. Very, very different to what we saw from him in Portugal in the first round of the season. I was also going to say, as Matthew Alder sets another fastest lap of the race, Daneyko's pace is now really starting to fall off. You've got to say it's now 8 seconds the gap, so it's really cut down in the last few laps or so.
Yeah, he has just hit that magic 60% part on the front left, and I think as soon as you get to that, the tyres do start falling off that proverbial cliff that we always talk about in the Pirelli era. Whether we'll be talking about it on F1 2022 with the new 18-inch wheels, they are expected to react slightly differently, of course, with the lower profile tyres, so we'll see if that is still an issue. But yeah, Daneyko probably now, unless Jeff's saying this rain is going to stop imminently, not too far away without thinking about coming into the pits. He's not doing too bad compared to some of the other intermediate runners from the start of this race, and he's still about 20.5 seconds ahead of Max Wiesel, so not losing too much time to him. It's only really Matthew Alder who's just doing Matthew Alder things at this moment in time and just closing in that gap. And Xander doing a great job of defending. He's yet to get any points this season, but he has been close on occasions. Let's not forget Silverstone. At one bit, it looks as though he was possibly going to win the race until the rain just started coming that tiny bit harder. And as it stands at the moment, he's not going to get a podium because of penalties, but he's in a very good position to get some decent points as Oggiano now down the inside at turn number 11 on Cornet. Can't quite get the overlap.
Yeah, not quite able to overlap, like you say, get underneath, and he wasn't able to get the switch back into 12 either, so couldn't think about diving down the inside of the Aston Martin. He's just getting a little bit stuck at the moment now as Oggiano can't really find a way through. It's going to have to take a mistake, you've got to say, from one of these two in front, or a bit of an optimistic move from Oggiano to get this move done. So, yeah, just stuck in a train now. I think it's starting to, the conditions mean that these tyres that Oggiano and the likes of that are on doesn't have that much of a real effect now, as I've unfortunately disconnected from the lobby. But yeah, it's not looking like it's really working at the moment for Orgiano, and of course all those people now right behind him in penalty range.
Yeah, everyone behind him in penalty range, so it will be interesting to see how this is working out, because at the moment Xander stands to lose. He will drop down behind Max as things stand, but Orgiano will drop down behind Casper, and if he gets another penalty, he might even drop behind Philip Walters outside of the point, so that'll be such a shame for him if that does happen. Lap number 19 of the race, though, and we haven't spoken, we haven't seen him for a while because he's just on his own. Dan Aiko, 6.8 seconds now the gap to Matthew Alder, who you'll just see pop by in the background there. The Red Bull just coming out of the Mistral chicane as Dan Aiko flies his way through Signes. 8.5 laps to go. The tyres won't last. Will it dry out quickly enough? It's starting to look as though it will not. And if we are going to get any dry running, it will be for the final couple of laps of the race. And it might not be worth changing those tyres, as Max Wiesel still all over the back of Fede, still not able to close up to Orgiano. We saw him get stuck behind Dan Aiko at this point of the track earlier on. The man who qualified on pole round 1 of the season, got a podium there, still third in the championship. I think as things stand at the moment, he should be staying in third as well, but just trying to work his way past Fede at the moment, and also keeping an eye on Isma behind Casper and Gil, though the gap to Gil does seem to be staying pretty consistent at 5.5 seconds. Lap number 20, and it is another fastest lap for Matthew Alder. He's now 5.7 seconds behind. Last lap around, he gained 1.3 on the Aston Martin. So, we're talking lap 23, lap 24. He's probably going to be in a position to take the lead.
Yeah, he's going to take it on track at this point, isn't he, with the pace that he's got over that Aston Martin. I think by the time he gets there, I don't think Danerka's going to have really an answer at all to be able to hold that Red Bull back. I will say I'm amazed Danerka's got this far on this set of tyres, but he is very close now to puncture territory, maybe only a lap or two away. So it's whether he just takes the risk and goes for it, but we've still got 7.5 laps left, so it's a big risk to do that. He's got to hope it dries out, or that if he does come in, he may just have to chance it and go on a slick set of tyres and hope that they're somewhat solid. But at the moment, we're not near slick conditions. Again, still, Cornet can't get close enough to Xander to think about a move. Max is close to the back of Fede, though. Down the inside goes the Ferrari at the Mistral chicane. He cuts across the AlphaTauri just a little bit in the braking zone, but Max, crucially, up into 6th place, puts a car between himself and Isma now. So that is somewhat of a buffer. And at the moment, Max is on for a pretty solid position in this race. It could be a podium.
Yeah, he's on for a 4th place at the moment. If he manages to work his way past Orgiano, or even more, if he hopes Orgiano manages to work his way past Cornet, then he can get past the Aston Martin. As here we go, this might be a better opportunity for Orgiano down the inside into turn number 11, seeing what Matthew Alder's done earlier on, and it's worked out well for the Alpine. He gets himself up into 4th. Now, can he challenge Xander and start to build that gap to try and get at least 5, maybe 10 seconds ahead of these drivers to keep himself safe from the penalty range? Gap at the front of the field is now 4.8 seconds as the leaders have come on to lap 21. And further down, H. Eagle in his first full-time race in the Red Bull. It's been a very quiet race after that earlier lap 1 spin. He gets ahead of Fusilio. He is up into 16th, but all the drivers, they're pretty much committed now. They've got to just see if they can get these tyres towards the end.
Yeah, that's really all they've got to do now, isn't it? They can't do anything else. It's not dry enough for slicks. There's no point pitting for a fresh set of intermediates now. You're just going to plummet well outside of the points unless you're Danerka. So, yeah, it's just not worth it. It's whether Danerka takes the risk and hopes for a win or a podium, or whether he pits and salvages something from it and just tries to score the points. So, it's a hard one to swallow for Danerka, really, isn't it? He's had such a good race. It was a great strategy call to start on those tyres. The rain's just not eased off enough for him to really make this strategy work, and it's got to be so gut-wrenching to lead the majority of this race and likely lose it because of a strategy, because of your tyre percentages. Isma now gets the move on Fede is into the Mistral chicane. So Fede is starting to lose places now on his intermediate tyres. Casper will be the next one to have a run at him.
Yeah, Casper, of course, had such a good start to the race. I'm very surprised to see the fact that he's actually the only driver, apart from Hamilton at the back, who's in the exact same position as where he started. 9th place he started, 9th he is at the moment. Might gain on quite a few penalties. We'll just have to wait and see how things go. But I think given what pace a fresh set of intermediates would bring you, Danerka, even if he pitted, I'd still say he's got a very solid chance of getting a podium. You can see that gap is definitely closing down now. 6 laps to go, 3.9 seconds between the Aston Martin and the Red Bull. Most worn tyre on the Aston Martin, 75%. Most worn tyre on the Red Bull is 51%. So Danerka is definitely in puncture territory now, and I'd be very surprised if we went this entire race without at least one of those runners who's tried to no-stop getting a puncture.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. We've still got 6 laps to go in this race, which is a long old way. So these drivers are going to be close to 100% by the end of the race on these tyres. The worst driver in terms of tyre wear at the moment is Denerko's teammate Cornet. He's got the highest percentage wear of 79 on his front left at the moment. So he's really struggling. I think being in the dirty air has not helped him at all. He's been stuck behind Zander for the majority of this race, and that's, of course, not been able to help his tyre wear at all. Okiano, you can see now having a go at Zander. Like you say, he's got to get this moved on the Alfa Romeo now so he can try and build that gap and get away from Max and maybe save a few positions in this race. If he can get that 5-second gap and maybe get one of the maybe not get one of the penalties, it could save him a podium, like you say. But still can't get close enough to Zander, despite the age of tyres. Zander's doing a very good job, and actually, it gets worse for Okiano. Max has been able to get the move on Cornet.
Yeah, so that's Max in a net podium position all of a sudden here now with the punctures, and he could even get a second place depending on what happens to Daneyko. Fingers crossed his tyres do make it towards the end, because that would lead to an absolutely frenetic final 5 and a bit laps here as Zander runs very wide coming through turn number 10. Ogiano nearly goes into the back of him. There, now they come through 11. Has Ogiano got the overlap in the Alpine? Can't quite get it done this time, but you can just see how much Zander is starting to struggle on this very worn interslick, you might as well say, set of tyres, because I think even Matthews, Ogiano's and all those tyres will have very few grooves on them. But those who started on the Inters, they're going to be getting almost no bite from those tyres. It's going to be a very, very sketchy final few laps. On the traction, Ogiano just can't quite get anything at the moment. Is he close enough to have a move? No DRS, which again is a very crucial sign that it is not dry enough at the moment. Can he send one down the inside into turn 1? Not close enough on this occasion, but he has forced Zander wide, and that might give him a chance to get the overlap here and get him done on the cutback. He's going to have a wheel alongside on the run down towards turn number 3. It is Ogiano very late on the brakes from Zander. Somehow he's held it off round the outside of 3. Can Ogiano now do it round the outside of 4 to give yourself the inside for turn number 5? Forces the Alfa Romeo off the curb, and now Max Wiesel's getting involved in all of this. Fantastic racing here at Paul Ricard. Ogiano gets up to 3rd, Zander's into 4th. I think that might very soon become 5th.
Yeah, sure, Max is going to try and get the move done. Tried to duck back into the slipstream and nearly ran clean into the back of the Alfa Romeo, but he's got enough straight line speed to get down the inside, has he? Zander's still trying to fight it round the outside, so Zander's still got some fight left in him at the moment, and Max has not really left a lot of room on the exit of the corner. They both have to back out of it. I wonder if Cornet and Isma can capitalise on this. Casper's got the move on Fede as well, so it's all started to kick off in this battle at the moment for 3rd on the road. Max does get the move on Zander in the end, and Cornet still trying to get moved on, but now Isma's down the inside of Cornet, gets the move done on the Aston Martin and almost runs clean to the back of the Alfa Romeo of Zander as well. So yeah, those on the old intermediates are really struggling, as proven by the fact that Denerko, his lead is now only 0.4 of a second. Matthew Alder's with him now. Yeah,
Matthew Alder is right on the back of him here, and will Denerko fight it too much, or will was just like, off you go, son, you can take the lead of this race. I'm just interested in getting these worn intermediate tyres, the final 22, 23 kilometres that I need to do on them to get towards the end of the race. Cornet and Casper are now battling. Both of the Aston Martins haven't stopped in this race. It's been a very quiet race for the pit crew for the Silverstone team, but I think it could get very lively for them in the final few laps. Matthew Alder right on the back of Daneyko then, coming through turns number 6 and 7. And Daneyko's still getting a pretty decent exit there, using up as much ERS as he dares, but you can still see that Red Bull closing in ever so slightly. Is he going to be close enough for a lunge into the Mistral chicane? And my game has crashed. Timing perfected.
Timing perfected. That is such a shame, but Denerko's managed to hold on to the place. Denerko has managed to hold on to the place against Matthew Alder for the time being. So yeah, he's managed to hold on to it. The rain is easing off a little bit. So it's close for Denerko. He's to the inside for turn 11. Matthew Alder's into the back of him, but yeah, Matthew Alder's going to get the move done now. No question about it. Matthew Alder down the inside. Denerko couldn't hold him off for much longer.
Well, so here we are, radio commentary from Aiden. I am trying to rejoin the session as quickly as possible, folks. Hopefully we'll be able to get in the next few minutes so we can see what's happening. But yeah, Codemasters with the biggest trolling ever there. The timing of that was impeccable. It looked like he was going to go for a move down the inside, and then next thing we knew, it was all gone and we weren't seeing any moves down the inside. But hopefully it won't be too long before we are able to get back into the lobby and back to see some proper racing action, at least on the screen. As I can tell you now that Matthew Alder is in the lead of this race. He has managed to get his way ahead of Daneco. Apologies for missing that on the stream. Oggiano is now in 3rd place. Max Wiesel in 4th. Isma in 5th. As Zander, he's really dropped down the field. I think he might be the first driver. Yeah, front left puncture for Zander.
Yeah, front left puncture for Zander. Like you say, Cornet's had a horrible run. Oh, Zander's retired in the pit lane. Cornet's just got a front left puncture coming out of the last corner. That is the worst spot on the track to get it. And as he gets a puncture, the rain stopped. It has now stopped raining on lap 25. So the poor luck for Zander and Cornet. They both get punctures just as the rain stops, and Cornet gets it on the worst spot on the track. I guess it was worth the risk for them being so far down on the grid, but it's just not paid off. The rain came just 2 laps too late for them.
Yeah, it has come too late. We've seen Hamilton's retired in the pits, Zander retires in the pits. Fabi's gone out on a set of soft tyres, and the fact that I'm seeing a Ferrari facing in the wrong direction for a bit there tells me all you need to know about whether the track is ready. Yes, you might need to pit off your intermediates, but it is not ready for a set of slicks. And Daneco, 89%, 90%, as you can see Fabi there. He's going to be extremely close towards the end. Fabi gets a very harsh 10-second time penalty for exceeding the track limits, as the Deltas are slowly trying to sort themselves out at this moment in time. But such bad luck for Zander and Cornet as well. They tried so hard. Almost looked like they might get rewarded with podiums, and it's going to be no points for either of them. As Daneco, I think he's realised those tyres aren't making to the end. He might as well try it and come into the pits.
Yeah, he's got to try something, hasn't he? 90% tyre wear. When he was hitting the brakes for the pit lane, they did look like into slicks. That was awful. Those intermediates looked utterly horrible. Look at them coming off the car. They look like they've got no tread on them at all. So in for a set of soft compound tyres. He may as well. He may as well come in. He's going to get points, I think, at this rate anyway. He may as well come in and save himself from a puncture and not fall the same fate as his teammate, who's now spun through turn number 11. It's just dependent on whether these slicks can get up to any sort of speed in these last 2 laps. Daneco comes out in 6th place, crucially ahead of Fede, who's on old intermediate. So he's got he's got some clean air he can drive into. It's just whether the slicks can heat up in these last 2 laps. But for Matthew Older, I mean, we didn't think he could get any more dominant wins than the 2 he's previously had. He now leads by 18 seconds, but that's over Oggiano, who's got a 5-second penalty. So Matthew Older pretty much has almost a pit stop in hand over the rest of the field.
Yeah, I doubt he's going to go for that pit stop. I think he might as well try to take these tyres to the end of the race, and he's not got long to go. Oggiano's in 2nd, but with those penalties, as Cornet, perhaps unsurprisingly, retires in the pit lane. Such a shame for him and Zander. They tried so hard. They've been rewarded with nothing, and again, Zander just getting it slightly wrong. Just maybe a bit more unlucky on the strategy, as Fede's now really dropping down the order. He's the one who's still carrying on that original set of the intermediate tyres. Fair play to him, but they are showing 91% wear at the moment. If he gets these to the end, that is an absolute miracle, but I don't think he's definitely going to get past by Brock, I think, very shortly. Can't see him getting them to the end in any decent condition. And Daneco, he's losing out to the car in front, but he's not doing too bad on this set of softs.
Yeah, not too bad, actually. It's kind of on the crossover point again. He had a bit of a wobble through turn number 10, but he just managed to keep it. It's on the bubble, I've got to say. So if the rain had finished maybe 2 laps earlier, then Daneco probably could have caught and maybe passed some people like Casper and Isma. But I think with only a lap to go, it's a little bit too late. It's got 3.5 seconds, a lap to go. DRS has just been enabled. So that's really now going to kick off in this fight for 4th position. Can Casper pass Isma and get 4th on the road? I mean, that'd be a great result for Casper. And of course, with Oggiano's penalties, that is probably going to be a podium for Casper if he can get the move done.
Yeah, certainly. Casper's got a very good chance to get himself a podium in this race out of nowhere. And we're seeing now Daneco, he's really gaining on these drivers. I wouldn't count him out yet for a podium. This would be an absolute miracle, but I would not count him out for a podium in this situation. Fede has taken his tyres towards the end of the race, and they still haven't got a puncture yet. But here comes Casper all over the back of Isma for the final lap of this race down the Mistral straight. You can see Isma's just weaving slightly. DRS is enabled. I don't think it's going to be quite close enough here, although he's definitely closing in. Can he send it round the outside on the Williams? This would be a fantastic move from Casper. Gets the move done. He's up into 4th place, but he needs to escape because this man is closing up at the moment. Daneco is absolutely flying on this set of soft tyres. 1 lap later, and it might have proved to be the right thing.
Yeah, just to say that as well, just jumping on board with our race leader, he's got a puncture on the final lap of the race. Matthew Older is limping home, Lewis Hamilton style, with a front right puncture.
Front right puncture for Matthew Older. He's going to get towards the end of this race just when you thought the final few laps couldn't get more dramatic. We've had a soft tyre change, we've had a PlayStation crash in, and we've had a winner with a puncture. Matthew Older takes the victory. Danico, he's all over the back of Isma and Casper. He's going to get one of them. He might be able to get the second one on pure traction here. We're going to see Oggiano's going to cross the line in second place. Who's it going to be coming towards the line here? He's really pushing it. I think he's just going to do it. Danico claims the podium by what can only be a few thousandths of a second. Casper gets fourth. Max Wiesel got second in all of that. Isma fifth. Oggiano, Gil, Valters, Brock and Jaquita round out the points. An absolutely fantastic finish at France. And at the front, on 3 tyres, was Matthew Older.
Well, that race completely blew up in the second half, didn't it? My oh my, that really came to a head for some of these drivers. Matthew Older is a lucky person to get away with only having half a lap left to do on that intermediate tyre. If that was a lap before when he'd got that puncture, that would have been a massive, massive bruise for Matthew Older's ego that could have happened to him. So I didn't realise that Matthew Older's tyres were that worn by the end. I said earlier on that he was pushing a lot for someone who had such a gap over the rest of the field. He got the puncture because of it, but because he had such a big gap, he was able to get away with it. But my oh my, what a final lap from Danico. I feel so bad for Casper. Casper did everything he could to try and hold on to that podium, but Danico on the softs just got it by probably the smallest margin I think I've ever seen in a league race. That is absolutely ridiculous.
And you know what else is ridiculous? Fede's tyre is showing at 100% wear here. And I think he's only just got a puncture on the cooldown lap. He's managed to do the entire race on a full set of intermediates. So fair play to him. Jaquita getting the in-game driver of the day. I think we've got multiple candidates, I think, for what could be our driver of the day. But the man on the top step of the podium, pole to victory, makes it sound simple. He had to do a pit stop. He had to come back from 14 seconds behind and had to contend with a puncture. But it is another victory for Matthew Older. A second place for Max Wiesel. And Danico, he started in second place, went down to third. But again, that does not tell the full story of what was a fantastic final lap for him. Here are the results. Matthew Older taking the victory. Max Wiesel in second. Danico getting that podium by 100th of a second. And it was only Fusilio who stole the final lap right at the death. Casper misses out on another podium again. So unlucky for the VSR man. So many times. I think that's the 4th or 5th time now I've commentated on him finishing in 4th place. Isma in 5th. Oggiano drops down to 6th, but he will very likely get another 5-second penalty, which would drop him behind Gil, behind Valters, and behind Brock as well. Jaquita claims the final points. Jensen just misses out. Fede, no stop strategy for him, gets him towards 12th. Eagle was 13th. Fusilio in 14th. Asacombe was a lap down. Suku, Cornet, Farby, all classified despite retiring. And Hamilton and Zander, the 2 Alfa Romeos, failing to get to the finish of that race. And Adam, I don't know what to say. Speechless by the end of that.
Absolutely speechless. That was... I think everything that could have happened did happen in that race, didn't it? Everything that we could have wanted from a race. That was very much a Silverstone 2020-esque race, wasn't it? It was a slow burner, and then in the second half of the race, it completely blew up in our faces. That was a brilliant race. And yet again, for Matthew Older, a win from pole on paper sounds fairly simple, but it was anything but that. But Matthew Older, in the wet conditions at the moment, is untouchable, isn't he? Absolutely untouchable in the wet conditions.
I mean, he's untouchable in the wet conditions. Just by his qualifying, he's pretty untouchable in the dry conditions as well. We are going to try and get the top few drivers in here, obviously, for the interviews, and I think they'll all have various things to say. I can imagine every single one of them is just a huge sigh of relief about the way that happened. Blizzard, Matthew Older obviously getting the puncture at the end. Max Wiesel just managing to work his way back up through the field. And Danico, that brilliant job at the end. Absolutely fantastic for him, but you've got to feel for Casper. He'd done the hard work, he'd got the move done. And then all of a sudden, here comes a man on the softs from about 5 seconds behind on the final lap, out of nowhere, to snatch the podium at the death.
Yeah, snatching it right at the death, like you say. And that was the thing we were mentioning, wasn't it? Did he stay out and take the risk of taking those intermediate tyres to the end of the race, or does he come in and salvage some points? Well, we definitely proved that it was 100% the right choice to come in off of those intermediate tyres. He might not have got a puncture, but it was very likely he would have got one. So, yeah, come in and save a podium from that race is brilliant stuff from Danico. So, Yeah, if I guess for him, the only thing he must be wishing was that Matthew Alder got that puncture a lap earlier, and that the rain finished a lap earlier. Because without that, if everything happened a lap earlier, Daneco surely would have won that race.
Yeah, and I think not many of us would have expected that. We said it was going to dry up, and we said it might be around about lap 24, 25 by the earliest, and that is exactly what has happened. We are still waiting to see if we can get the final few drivers to come in. Nathan's already made the Lance Stroll edit of the game crash earlier on, so fair play to you, sir. I was thinking about doing that, but you're clearly quicker than me. I'm a bit slow in my old age with technology and multitasking at this moment in time, as we do try still wait for a few of these drivers to come in. We'll talk about some other great performances. I mean, I know we didn't get any points, but I feel like Fede deserves some credit for getting those tyres up through the entire race distance.
Yeah, amazed that he got them through. Like you say, he had 100% tyre wear by the end of the race and only got the puncture when the race finished. So, well, great tyre management throughout that race from Fede. Unfortunately, it doesn't reward him with any points, which is a shame for him. But yeah, great tyre management at the end, and especially considering Matthew Alder got a puncture on that final lap, having pitted on, what was it, lap 8 or 9 onto those intermediate tyres. So Fede managed to take those tyres 9 laps further and still didn't get a puncture until the race finished. So brilliant stuff from Fede to get those tyres to the end. Just a shame he wasn't really rewarded for it.
I mean, yeah, we said it was going to be close with that puncture towards the end of the race. I don't think we were expecting it to really happen unless you were very unlucky on the tyres, and that seems to have been the case. I mean, other drivers, Casper, we spoke about how unlucky he was, but he had a fantastic first few laps of that race. Just obviously when he fell back and then got stuck in the traffic, managed to cost him. And Isma, he was third. He was in a net third with 1 lap to go. All of a sudden, he's finishing in 5th.
Yeah. It's such a shame, isn't it, that it all kind of came to a head for them on the final lap of the race. It just kind of fell apart. DRS being enabled for only 1 lap as well. It really fell apart for Isma, sadly. And of course, championship-wise, not great for Isma either. That gives Matthew Alder an even bigger championship lead at this point as well. So yeah, he just continues to pull away, and Isma's just not had the luck in that race, unfortunately, to hold on to that podium. Same for Casper as well, to make such a great move on Isma on that final lap, and again, himself not be rewarded with a penalty either. Is just a little bit unlucky for the two of them.
Yeah, certainly. Sometimes in motor racing, you definitely do need a bit of luck. We're going to head over now to the waiting room, and we can get these interviews underway, and we're going to start with the man who, out of the top 3, I think is the one who had the most normal race. It is Max Wissel, who finished in 2nd. Fantastic job by yourself to get another podium. You seem to love these wet conditions.
Yeah, it was really difficult once again after the qualifying when we have only one lap, which was normally not from my side. So Banker was a 28, 2 or 3. So yeah, P7 wasn't optimal. Made a good step forward during the race. So had a good race with the Inter and finished 2nd, so which was pretty good and happy with that.
Yeah, they're very happy with that. I mean, how at the start of the race were you tempted to go onto the set of the wet tyres? Because it definitely looked to us that the track was nowhere near. Well, you did go on wets. We attempted to go on intermediates because it looked as though the track was definitely full wet at the start. Did you think it might have been worth taking the risk like what Daneco and a few others did?
Sure. After the race, it's pretty easy to say the Inter tire would be the better decision or choice. So, we all spoke in the party about what Jarno did in China, I think was, and we all the Inter tire, but at the end, we go the safe way, and but definitely what Nico did was at this moment definitely quicker and also better choice.
Yeah, definitely. Aidan, I'll go over to you to see if you've got any questions for Max. Aidan?
Yeah, sorry, I might muted there. I was just making sure I'm talking to myself. There we go. So, you obviously got a week's break coming up, and then we move over to Hungary for the next part of the championship. You say, how are you feeling about Hungary? Is that a track that you think you can perform well at?
Normally I don't like Hungary too much, but I did the qualifier for Challenger and finished P1, so I couldn't take part on the challenge to work and to my private life, but should be quick there, and we will see.
Yeah, definitely we will see. And then, of course...
Yeah,
I
and
was
we'll
going to
see, but I think it's a good track.
Yeah, it's a good track, definitely. And of course, after that race as well, you'll be a little bit closer to Isma in the championship now as well. I think you'll still be second, but you'll be still be third, but a lot closer to second in the championship now. What's your overall aim now looking for the rest of the season? Is it to hold position, or do you think you can have a run at Matthew Older?
Well, I don't know. At the moment is do race like that one, or just be more or less on the same pace to be able to finish on the podium. I mean, Matthew pretty quick, so no doubt in this, and we need a more or less a perfect day to beat him. I don't know what would it be the real pace from him in the try, but so I don't think that we beat him today, and we will see that we finish under top 4 in the championship. Would be more than expected, and would be happy with that.
Brilliant stuff. And yeah, congratulations on your second podium of the season, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Max. I'll let you head off now and get ready for a nice week break. So congratulations on that second place. We're now going to go over to the man who finished in third position then, and definitely had a very dramatic race. It is Danirko. Congratulations then on that podium. Be honest, when you came in for a set of the slick tyres, what was the best finish you think you could get?
I was hoping for the dry to come before, and didn't. With one lap, maybe I could have also won the race because I knew Matthew had a puncture, and I matched the Inters quite well, and then Matthew was so fast, and it reached me again. I tried to defend, but it was really fast, and he had the tire advantage. Then I was hoping for the dry so much, and he only came like with 3 laps to go. So I pitted for soft. I took that gamble, and soft was not that fast, especially at the start of the stint. But then I was able to reach the third and fourth guy was Isma and Casper, and to overtake them in the very last corner. So I'm happy, but it could have gone better, sure.
Yeah, definitely. Another great podium for yourself. How difficult was it at the start of the race on that set of the intermediate tyres? Because it looked like, at least for the first 2 laps, you were really struggling to get traction at some points, especially off the start line.
Yeah, usually I'm not that fast in the rain. I struggle that much in the rain. So I took the gamble with the Inter, and it was really, really difficult because in the traction it was sliding so much. In the braking I was going straight on, and so much understeer. And I also used a bit of tire wear at the start. I was like 6% per lap, and in the end of the stint was like 2 or maybe 3. So yeah, the start was really difficult, but then it was better.
Yeah, definitely worked out well for you. Aidan, any questions for our third place finisher?
I guess, obviously, you pitted with 2 laps to go to put onto those soft compound tyres. Was there ever a thought that you would stay out and try and get to the end on those set of intermediate tyres, or was it more a case of just salvaging what you could from that point onwards?
I would have finished like second anyway, so I just played safely. If I knew that the Matthew had a puncture, maybe I could have tried, but I was with 8 lap older tire, so if he had a puncture, I don't know how I did it.
Yeah, it would have been definitely a very lucky situation to be in that one. And of course, week's break, and then we move on to Hungary for the next round. How are you feeling about Hungary? It's a track you think you can succeed at again?
I think I did like only a league race on Hungary, but I did plenty of practice for the event for Challenger, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, congratulations on your podium, mate, and a brilliant race from you. So yeah, enjoy that one.
Yeah, thank you guys for commentating also.
Yeah, definitely. It's a shame that we missed the overtake for the lead because the game decided to crash at the... which I believe actually is Aidan, the second time it's happened to me and you around France, now that I think about it. So, and it happened to George on Thursday, so maybe we should... on Wednesday even, so maybe we should just avoid France. But congratulations, Danico, on that podium place. And we're going to head over to the man who took the victory. Quite a dramatic victory in the end, even though the gap didn't make it look like that. A third win in the season for Matthew Alder. And I imagine the main emotion is now relief that you only got that puncture on the final few corners.
Yeah, I mean, I got it on the front right, not the front left, despite the front left being much higher. But yeah, I mean, if I got it as soon as I could have gotten it, then probably wouldn't have won the race. So yeah, definitely happy that it didn't happen when it could have.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and you were definitely very good today. Another superb performance from yourself, another pole position and a victory in France. I believe that gives you now more than a race win lead in the championship. It's been a brilliant start to the season for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember where I finished in the first race, but 3 wins in a row. It's great, especially with Monaco being one of them. So, yeah, great start to the season.
Yeah, definitely. Aidan, any questions for our race winner?
I guess just the same question that I've asked everybody else. Hungary next, of course. I think everybody's practiced Hungary driven, I think, to the moon and back in terms of distance around Hungary for the challenges. How are you feeling about Hungary? Do you think you can pick up maybe a 4th win in a row?
It's going to be... I mean, if I'm going to win, it's probably going to have to be another Monaco, maybe. I don't know. Not a great track for me, I wouldn't say.
Well, that's a bit of an eye-opener for everybody else maybe watching at this point. And yeah, of course, maybe for the rest of the season as well. Of course, at this point, championship front runner as well. I guess, obviously, Hungary is maybe not a track for you that you're maybe not feeling that good about. Is there any other tracks maybe that you're a little bit worried about, or are you pretty confident looking at the rest of the season?
I don't know what the tracks are for the rest of the season, so I'm not really able to comment on that.
Fair play. Better to not look at it and not get too worried about the future. But congratulations on your 3rd win in a row.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Congratulations then to Matthew on getting that 3rd win, and obviously to Danico and Max for joining us as well. That is pretty much it then for this stream, and as you've already heard Aidan say, next time around it is going to be the Hungarian Grand Prix. Monaco without the barriers, Aidan, so a bit like what we've seen at most of the races this season, but for various different reasons, qualifying is going to be oh so important. Yeah,
qualifying really important. Like you say, it is definitely a difficult track to overtake on. Turn 1 and 2 is the only really overtaking opportunities on the track, so it's going to be difficult for the drivers. But of course, one thing to note about Hungary, if it's a dry race, which I don't know if I want it to be a dry race at this point, because some of the wet races have sprung up a lot of surprises. But if it's a dry race, the alternate strategy around Hungary, again, is very powerful. So it could spring a surprise. It could go one of two ways. It could be a very boring win for pole for one person, or it could be a surprise win from someone who's doing something completely different on strategy. That's kind of how it works at Hungary. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is. Hungary, I definitely a track that I enjoy driving around. I didn't do it as much for the challenges as everyone else. Didn't want to practice too hard to finish about 100,000th in the world. But hey, that's why I'm behind the microphone. That is it then for today's stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I don't think you're going to see a more interesting final few laps of a stream than that. We had the game crashing, we had the leader getting a puncture, and we had someone taking a podium on the final lap of the race by 100th of a second. What more do you want? Unfortunately for you guys, you have to wait a bit more for our PSGL action, as we are on a break week next week, so it will be a week on Wednesday when the PC tier is back on the 23rd around Hungary, and we'll be back ourselves on the Monday, and of course there will be other PC tiers on the Thursday and the rest of the PS tiers on the Thursday, Sunday and Monday. But thanks to Aidan for joining me in the commentary box. Thanks so much to you guys for all your comments. Really does keep us going, seeing all your opinions and views on what is happening on the race and other things. And we will see you next time around in a fortnight for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Enjoy the last bit of Valentine's Day, and goodbye.